Hello bachcho, good evening. So today is the fourth session of accounting ratios and the topic is profitability ratio. आज की सेशन में हम प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी रेशियो के ऊपर बात करने वाले हैं और डिटेल इंफॉर्मेशन इसके बारे में हम बात करेंगे कि प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी रेशियो होता क्या है. इससे पहले सेशन 1 में हमने लिक्विडिटी रेशियो की बात कर ली थी, सेशन 2 में सॉल्वेंसी रेशियो की, सेशन 3 में एक्टिविटी रेशियो की एंड दिस इज द लास्ट सेशन ऑफ अकाउंटिंग रेशियोज और आज हम प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी रेशियो की बात करने वाले हैं. सो लेट्स स्टार्ट विदाउट एनी डिले. So first of all, we need to understand what is a profitability ratio. So when I am talking about the profitability ratio, so it's really simple. It derived from the word profitable, right? So the profitability or financial performance is mostly summed up in the statement of profit and loss account. Definitely we are talking about the profit. Profitability ratios are determined to analyze the earning capacity. This is very important of the business, which is the result of utilization of assets employed in the business. There is a close connection between the profit and the productivity with which the assets are utilized in the business are used. ठीक है? So ये थोड़ा सा information profitability ratio के बारे में. Now there are types of ratios. So there are 5 types of ratios. There are so many actually, but in your exam point of view, there are 5. So gross profit ratio, operating profit ratio, net profit ratio, operating profit ratio and return on investment, or we can also call it return on capital employed. So let's talk about the gross profit ratio. So gross profit ratio establishes the relation between the gross profit and the revenue from operation. Revenue from operation, that is net sales of an enterprise. The formula for gross profit ratio is gross profit upon revenue from operation into 100. Gross profit upon revenue from operation into 100. And in order to ascertain the gross profit, the formula is quite simple. If you could subtract cost of revenue from operation from revenue from operation, so you will come to know about the gross profit, right? Now what is the operating ratio? It is very simple. It establishes the relation between the operating cost and revenue from operation. Operating cost, whenever I am talking about the operating cost, it includes the office and administrative and selling and distribution expenses. एक बार इसका formula भी देख लेते हैं. So operating ratios का formula is cost of revenue from operation plus operating expenses upon revenue from operation. Cost of revenue from operation और operating expenses को हम combine कर दें तो इसको हम operating cost भी बोल सकते हैं, right? So next formula में हमने करा है operating cost upon revenue from operation. Cost of revenue from operation plus operating expenses if you could combine, so it becomes the operating cost also. तो कभी कभी operating cost upon revenue from operation into 100 दिया होता है. So don't be worry. So basically don't worry, यहाँ जो है cost of revenue from operation plus operating expenses को combine कर दें तो ये actually operating cost ही होता है. Now operating expenses की बात करें तो it's really simple. Employees benefit expenses, depreciation and amortization expenses and other expenses. और एक और फॉर्मूला होता है जो मैं अभी बता रहा था, ऑफिस एंड एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एक्सपेंसेस, selling and distribution expenses and plus employees benefit expenses, depreciation and amortization expenses. Now what is the objective? The objective of computing the operating ratio is to assess the operational efficiency. This is very important. Operational efficiency of the business. Lower operating ratio is better because it leaves higher profit. If the operating cost is low, so definitely it will give you more profit, more benefit. Okay, so to meet a non-operating expense, to pay the dividend, etc., a rise the operating ratio indicates a decline in the efficiency. Now operating ratio plus operating, this is very important, operating ratio plus operating profit ratio equals to 100. सपोज एग्जाम में क्वेश्चन आता है कि आपका ऑपरेटिंग रेशियो 75% का है, सो व्हाट वुड बी योर ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट रेशियो? सो एज वी नो ऑपरेटिंग रेशियो प्लस ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट रेशियो विल गिव यू 100 एंड व्हाट डिड आई से कि ऑपरेटिंग रेशियो इफ 75% है तो आपका ये ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट कितना होगा? इट्स रियली सिंपल, 100 minus operating ratio if you could do, that is 75%, so you'll come to know about the operating profit, that is 25%. This is very important. Now, operating profit ratio. Operating profit ratio measures the relationship between operating profit and revenue from operation. Revenue from operation can also be called net sales. ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट रेशियो का फॉर्मूला जो होता है वो होता है ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट अपॉन रेवेन्यू फ्रॉम ऑपरेशन इनटू 100. सो इट्स रियली सिंपल टू अंडरस्टैंड. ग्रॉस प्रॉफिट में अदर ऑपरेटिंग इनकम को आप प्लस करो और अदर ऑपरेटिंग एक्सपेंसेस को सब्ट्रैक्ट करो तो यू विल कम टू नो द ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट. और सपोज यहां नेट प्रॉफिट गिवन है तो नेट प्रॉफिट में आपने नॉन ऑपरेटिंग इनकम को सब्ट्रैक्ट करना है और नॉन ऑपरेटिंग एक्सपेंसेस को ऐड करोगे. सो यू विल कम टू नो अबाउट अगेन द ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट. Okay. Now, what is the objective of this? So, the objective of computing operating profit ratio is to determine the operational efficiency of the business and an increase in the ratio over the previous period shows improvement, right, in the operational efficiency of the business enterprises. Now, what is the net profit ratio? बहुत simple है. Net profit ratio establishes the relation between net profit and revenue from operation. We can also call it net sales. It shows the percentage of net profit earned on revenue from operation. Now, what is the formula? Very simple. Net profit upon revenue from operation or net sales into 100. Net profit, it is very easy to calculate. There are 2-3 ways. I'll explain you all 3 ways. Like पहला क्या हो सकता है, suppose if the gross profit is given, so gross profit में if you could subtract operating expenses, non-operating expenses, and if you could add operating income and non-operating income, so you'll come to know about the net profit, right? And the alternative formula is revenue from operation plus other income minus cost of material consumed minus purchase of stock in trade, minus change of inventories, minus employees benefit expenses, minus finance cost, minus depreciation and amortization, minus other expenses will give you the net profit. So, net profit ratio indicates the overall efficiency of the business. Higher the net profit, we can understand higher the net profit ratio, better for the business, and increase in the ratio over the previous year shows improvement in operational efficiency, right? Now, this is the last ratio, return on investment, ROI. We can also call it return on capital employed. So, basically ROCE also we can call it. So, return on investment or return on capital employed shows the relation of profit before, when I say profit, so profit before interest and tax with the capital employed. The result of operation of business is either profit or loss. The funds or sources used in the business to earn profit or loss are proprietors, shareholders, funds and loans. The formula for this is return on investment को कैसे calculate कर सकते हैं? तो net profit before interest and tax upon tax and dividend upon capital employed into 100. Now, how to calculate the capital employed? So, there are 2 ways, asset side approach or liability side approach. तो एसेट साइड अप्रोच से हम लाइबिलिटी साइड अप्रोच से देखें तो शेयर होल्डर्स फंड में इफ यू कुड ऐड द नॉन करेंट लाइबिलिटीज, सो बेसिकली यू विल कम टू नो अबाउट द कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड. एसेट साइड अप्रोच से देखें तो नॉन करेंट एसेट्स में इफ यू कुड ऐड द वर्किंग कैपिटल, सो यू विल कम टू नो अबाउट द कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड. सो देयर आर 2 वेज. एक लाइबिलिटी साइड अप्रोच होता है जिसमें आपने शेयर होल्डर्स फंड में नॉन करेंट लाइबिलिटीज को सम अप कर देना होता है. इसमें थोड़ी केयरफुल रहना होगा. सपोज प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस अकाउंट का नेगेटिव या लॉस का बैलेंस गिवन है या शेयर इश्यू एक्सपेंसेस दिया हुआ है या प्रिलिमिनरी एक्सपेंसेस रिटन ऑफ गिवन है, तो दैट्स नीड टू बी सब्ट्रैक्टेड इन ऑर्डर टू असर्टेन द ट्रू अमाउंट ऑफ कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड, राइट. अब एसेट साइड अप्रोच की बात करें तो नॉन करेंट एसेट्स प्लस वर्किंग कैपिटल. तो वर्किंग कैपिटल जब भी हम कहते हैं तो इसका मतलब है करंट एसेट्स माइनस करंट लायबिलिटीज. तो नॉन करंट एसेट्स plus working capital, it means non-current assets plus current asset will give you the total assets. तो total assets में से current liabilities को subtract कर दोगे, so you'll come to know about the capital employed. Now I have taken few questions here. The following information is given. If revenue from operation of XYZ is 10 lakh rupees, cost of revenue from operation is 4.5 lakh, selling expenses is 80,000, administrative expenses is 60,000. Now you need to calculate the gross profit, okay. Now you need to calculate the operating profit ratio and you need to calculate the operating profit ratio. So first of all, let's do the working notes. So in order to calculate the gross profit, what we can do is, we have revenue from operation. So from revenue from operation, if you could subtract the cost of revenue from operation, so it would be equals to your gross profit. All right. Revenue from operation minus cost of revenue from operation will give you the gross profit. So here the revenue from operation is 10 lakh and cost of revenue from operation is 4 lakh 50,000. So it means your gross profit is 5 lakh 50,000. Your gross profit is 5 lakh 50,000. Okay. So in order to calculate our first formula, that is gross profit ratio, gross profit ratio, the formula is gross profit upon revenue from operation into 100. I can use the short form, revenue from operation into 100. So here the gross profit is 5.5 lakh and the revenue from operation is 10 lakh. So it simply means that we are having a gross profit of 55%. Okay. So no problem at this. And before starting with the operating ratio, we can again calculate the operating ratio. So for operating ratio, the formula would be operating cost upon revenue from operation into 100. So when I say operating cost, it is the sum up value of cost of revenue from operation plus operating expenses. When I say operating expenses, so basically from cost of revenue from operation, if you could add office and administrative expenses and selling and distribution expenses, so it will become the operating cost. So here I am just going to calculate the operating cost here. This is my second working notes. So operating cost. So operating cost ka formula is cost of revenue from operation. I have written CORFO, cost of revenue from operation plus operating expenses. When I say operating expenses, so basically it is the sum total of office and administrative expenses, which is given as 60,000, and selling and distribution expenses, which is given as 80,000. So let's find out this. So cost of revenue from operation is 4,50,000. Selling expenses is of 80,000 and administrative expenses is of rupees 60,000. Okay, so 4,50,000 plus 80 will give you 530 plus 60 will give you 5,90,000. So your operating cost is 5,90,000. So here you can easily calculate 5,90,000 upon revenue from operation, that is 10 lakh, into 100. So basically easily you can calculate 59% is your operating profit ratio. Now suppose in this question आपको ये operating ratio calculate नहीं करना है, तो how can we deal with that? We know that operating ratio plus operating profit ratio. I can take the short form here. Operating ratio and operating profit ratio. Operating profit ratio will give you 100%. Suppose if your operating profit ratio is 59%, so what would be your operating ratio? So 100 minus 59, so 41% would be your operating ratio. ठीक है, तो इस तरह से आप कैलकुलेट कर सकते हो. जैसे इस क्वेश्चन में हमने क्या कैलकुलेट कर लिया था, इस क्वेश्चन में हमारे पास ऑपरेटिंग रेशियो गिवन है, operating profit ratio नहीं given है, so this is 59%. So suppose if you need to calculate the operating profit ratio, so what you can do is 100 minus operating profit, 100 minus operating ratio will give you the operating profit ratio. Operating ratio plus operating profit ratio का जब sum total करते हैं, it will be equals to 100%. So suppose in this question we have just now calculated the operating ratio जिसका 59% आया था, तो 100 में से ऑपरेटिंग रेशियो 59% माइनस करोगे आप, सो यू विल कम टू नो व्हाट द ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट रेशियो, दैट इज 41%. तो उसकी वैल्यू आपका 41% आ जाएगा. Next one is, given the following information, revenue from operation, cost of revenue from operation, selling expenses, administrative expenses are 3,40,000, 1,20,000, 80,000, 40,000 respectively. Okay, so this is your revenue from operation, this is your cost of revenue from operation, and this is your selling and distribution expenses, and this is your administrative expenses. Now what do you need to calculate? The gross profit. Again, the working notes are quite similar. So in order to ascertain the gross profit, what we can do is, in order to ascertain the gross profit, this is your working note number 1, right? So this is your working note number 1. So what you can do is, revenue from operation minus cost of revenue from operation will give you the gross profit. So here the revenue from operation is 3,40,000 and cost of revenue from operation is 1,20,000. So the difference between two is 2,20,000, and this is your gross profit. Okay. So in order to ascertain the gross profit ratio, we can just put into the formula, and the formula is gross profit ratio. The formula is gross profit upon revenue from operation into 100. So here the gross profit is of 2,20,000, revenue of operation is of 3,40,000 into 100. So let's simplify this. Something comes in the decimal. So let's calculate this. So it's 1100 divided by 17. So this is 64.70%. So this is 64.70%. Now we need to calculate the operating ratio. Operating ratio we need to calculate here. So again the same formula need to be applied. हमने जो पिछले वाले क्वेश्चन में करा था, cost of revenue from operation plus operating expenses upon revenue from operation into 100. So cost of revenue from operation is 1,20,000. Operating expenses includes the office and administrative expenses and selling and distribution expenses. So this is 80,000 and 40,000 respectively. Upon revenue from operation, that is 3,40,000 into 100. So 120 plus 80 plus 40 will give you how much? 2,40,000. This is your operating cost, and revenue from operation is 3,40,000 into 100. Just simplify this. This is approximately 70%. This is approximately 70%, 70 point something. So we can round it off. So 70%. Now this question is, cash sales is 2,20,000, credit sales are rupees 3 lakh, sales return is 20,000, gross profit is 1 lakh, operating expenses is 25,000, non-operating income is 30,000, non-operating expenses 5,000. Calculate the net profit. Okay, very good. So let's do the working note first. So we have the gross profit. So we can start our journey to calculate net profit from here. So if you have net profit, if you have gross profit and you need to calculate the net profit, so the formula is gross profit minus operating expenses minus operating expenses minus non-operating expenses plus operating income plus non-operating income if any. In this question, we have a gross profit of 1 lakh. Okay, we just need to put in the formula. Operating expenses of 25,000 which need to be subtracted. This is your operating expenses which need to be subtracted. Non-operating income of 30,000 and non-operating expenses of 5,000. So, okay, 5,000 on account of non-operating expenses and 30,000 on account of non-operating income. So, basically the final value of net profit is 1 lakh only. The final value of net profit is 1 lakh only. So, gross profit here, gross profit and net profit is similar because similar amount is being added or subtracted. So, now in order to ascertain, the net profit, what we need? So, net profit ratio equals to, the formula is net profit upon revenue from operation into 100. So, here the net profit is of rupees 1 lakh, revenue from operation. So, when we are talking about the revenue from operation, so revenue from operation का मतलब है net revenue from operation. So, in order to calculate the revenue from operation, what we have to do is cash sales plus credit sales. So, cash sales और credit sales को आप plus कर लोगे तो कितना आ जाएगा? 2,20,000 plus 3 lakh will give you how much? 520 minus sales return of 20,000. So, this should be 5 lakh. So, the net sales, net revenue from operation is of 5 lakh into 100. So, 20% is your net profit. Alright. Now, net profit before interest and tax is 6 lakh, net fixed asset is 20 lakh, net working capital is 10 lakh, current assets is 11 lakh. Calculate return on investment. So, basically we need to calculate ROI. This is return on investment. We can also call it return on capital employed. The formula is profit before, when I am talking about the profit, so obviously net profit before tax, for interest and tax upon capital employed into 100. So, in this question we already have an availability of net profit before interest and tax of rupees 6 lakh. Okay, fair enough. So, we need to calculate the capital employed. So, as I mentioned, capital employed can be calculated by the way of two, either the asset side approach or the liability side approach. So, in this question we can take the help of asset side approach because the complete asset side approach, in all the information are given in order to calculate the capital employed. What is the formula for the same? Net fixed assets, net non-current assets plus working capital. So, when net fixed asset is given and nothing is mentioned, so by default we can consider, so this is your net fixed assets, we can consider as a non-current assets only. So, net fixed assets here plus net working capital. So, when I am talking about the net working capital, it is basically the sum, the difference between the current assets minus current liabilities. So, net working capital. So, here we can take net fixed asset is of 20 lakh and net working capital is of 10 lakh. So, combinedly it should be 30 lakh. Net fixed assets plus net working capital will give you the capital employed by the asset side approach, right? So, now we are having the availability of both. Net profit before interest and taxes of 6 lakh. It is already there in the question, it is given, and just now we have calculated the capital employed, that is 30 lakh into 100. So this is again 20%. So आज की सेशन में हमने बात करी बच्चे सारे रेशियोज की. ग्रॉस प्रॉफिट रेशियो हमने करा, ऑपरेटिंग रेशियो हमने करा, ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट रेशियो हमने करा, नेट प्रॉफिट रेशियो हमने करा, और लास्ट में हमने रिटर्न ऑन इन्वेस्टमेंट, जिसको हम रिटर्न ऑन कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड भी बोलते हैं, वो भी हमने करा. करने के लिए बहुत सिंपल सी बात है, आपको फॉर्मूला फिंगर टिप्स पे होने चाहिए एंड देन यू कैन स्टार्ट डूइंग द प्रैक्टिस. तो वो फॉर्मूला जो है वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. फॉर्मूला को पहले आप अच्छे से देखेंगे एंड देन यू कैन स्टार्ट डूइंग द प्रैक्टिस. सारे क्वेश्चंस आपके इजीली कैलकुलेट हो जाएंगे. आई विश यू ऑल द बेस्ट. थैंक यू सो मच. Keep smiling and keep learning. God bless.